And I found them in a box. And I took screenshots of them. It was at the museum in Peekskill. Does anyone know H.B. Mota? And the curator, who's given me other exhibits there, called me Diane Artist and said, I can't believe you did these. And I had a show just before this. And these were photographs that I shot in 1968 on the subway, on the street, in Times Square when it wasn't Disneyland. But I bought a Honeywell Pentax camera. And what I loved about it is, unlike a Canon, it didn't sound like a cannon went off. It was quiet. And they were black and white, but you had to hold your breath so that you could take a picture. It was like that. So it's thrilling to see them, and now they're all framed.
Did you develop them?
I did. No, I printed them. I didn't develop them, but I printed them in a dark room. And it was quite an adventure. But it only lasted a year. I was a psychology major first, and I only went to art school for 2 years because I became a professional illustrator in the middle of my second year. I don't know, I'm getting it confused. We had a month's vacation, and I called Good Housekeeping magazine, and the art director answered the phone. And he said, come on over, kid. And so I went over with my portfolio, very excited. And he said, Susan? And I said, yes. He said, this is the worst presented portfolio I have ever seen, but damn it, can you draw? And he gave me an assignment on the spot to draw pancakes in black and white, in pen and ink, because I worked with a 00 rapidograph back then. And they had hired famous photographers, but you can't eat pancakes that are photographed in black and white. They just look inedible. So I have the drawing that actually landed me, a print of it, my first job over there. I have so much work. This is like a small portion of it. If any of you want to see more of the work, you're welcome to come to my home studio. People say their favorite museum. So then I became an illustrator. These were actual book jackets. This was an ad for Conan Belding for Clairol.
I worked for Bristol Myers.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And when I did it, I only had a year and a half of art school, so people said, oh, that looks just like Beardsley. And I said, well, thank you. And I had to go home and look up who that was. So, and this was a cover of this magazine, and they had never used art before. These were watercolor graphics that sold around the world, and I still get people whose parents bought them, and they still have them and treasure them. It was a series of 4 beautiful women. This was a series of classical music called The Musical Head, and it was designed to get young people into classical music. So the idea was, once the musical head cracked and out came Mozart, out came Bach, the liner notes were written back in the day, but I remember this was written up in the New York Times that someone said it reminded them of Paul Klee, and I threw the article out. But so this was my whole world. This was the exotic Rimsky-Korsakov, and the originals are bigger. And I couldn't paint on the original because if I screwed it up, I probably wouldn't be here today. So I learned about technology of having my drawings reproduced on watercolor paper. So that way I could screw up a reproduction and go on to the next one. And this is how it looked on the actual album. And there was the pen name drawing. So this is all mine. And the art director got in trouble because he had the album die cut so that no type would be on my art, which cost London Records a lot of money. What else? So this is Mozart's head, and this became a commissioned oil painting. So it went from a 12 by 12 inch album to a 2.5 by 5 foot painting that they promised to lend me, and then they became so protective of it they wouldn't let us leave their house. This was Melanie, the folk singer. She's just passed.
Yeah.
And I was a strict vegetarian back then, and I actually met her. I took dance classes across from Carnegie Hall. There was a vegetarian restaurant. You know the one I'm talking about?
I think so. Long time ago.
Way
right?
long time ago. And I went, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if I got to do her album? And then I got a phone call from this New York designer, would I like to do Melanie's songbook? And I got an award of excellence for this, but I was pissed because I didn't get it. This was my Grammy nomination. This was the music of Eric Satie. I sold the original drawing of just the head. He was a classical composer who worked at the time with Picasso and Jean Cocteau, and so I read his whole biography and listened to as much of his music as I could. He wrote something called Jamnopédie that turns out to be my mother's favorite piece of music. She's long gone, but.
Did you have a representative, a rep?
I wish.
You did it all yourself?
I did it all. It was all walking on the street. I think I'm going to go that way. I'm going to go. The only time I had an agent was for the Clairol. And when I did it, the client, first they loved it, and then they were afraid to use it, and I had to make the hairdryer bigger. So I had to take it home, the curlers, not hairdryer. And then they weren't going to use it, and you're very impetuous when you're young, remember that? And I almost threw it out. But I went in the next day, and they decided to run it, and they ran it in every major magazine, Vogue, all the Harper's Bazaar, and this was, so I used to, then I would go to the Metropolitan Museum and I hid some embroidery there and rail. Troll Garden. Oh, but none of it has gotten old. I have sold reproductions. For instance, this was a book jacket that's now a giclée print. So anything can be made into anything. I love working with clients and their budgets. And I have work to choose from of all medium and all subject matter.
I have a very quick question.
Sure.
Some of these photos, the people look like they're staring right at you. Were they aware?
Oh, those guys did not like me photographed. No, he didn't. They were yelling at me, or being, I mean, back then. No, they're not looking at me. He didn't like me photographing them. They didn't see me, they didn't see me, they didn't see me, he didn't see me, she didn't see me, she didn't see me.
Okay.
No, they didn't, but these guys did. I'd walk down the street and they'd go, hey, Blondie, and they'd go, or, hey, Red. It's a different time.
You have a preferable medium?
Whatever I'm currently working with.
No preference really in
No,
the whole
no.
lifetime? Oil? Watercolor?
I love looking at them. It's too much work to do them. Whatever I'm working in, but pen and ink, working with a very fine pen. When I transferred to art school, the teachers that I had were abstract expressionist artists. That was the only way they could get a job back then. So they worked with giant brushes and Layden and all of it. So I didn't know about working with a little tiny brush. So my original paintings were all big brushes.
When you do watercolors, you have a little tiny brush.
Oh yeah,
Very
yeah.
tiny.
Oh yeah. And these are smaller than the originals,
Yeah.
but it's still And then then I got an agent. All the stories. I got an agent, finally, and I'm 7 months pregnant, and he fires me.
He fires you?
Yes, he fires me. That's the only job he ever got me. And he laminated my portfolio, so it weighed like a truck. And I walked out of his office crying, 7 months pregnant. And my daughter was born. I did an illustration assignment, and I'm nursing her in one arm and pen making in the other. And the nurse said, "What am I here for?" I said, "For my pride." So there's stories with all of it. I could talk for 3 years. So then my husband is right here, and he not only loves my work, but when we got together, he said, "I would love to see you have a show of Susan's men, of Susan's women, of Susan's abstracts." And we got together when I was halfway through the giant painting over there. So I'm thrilled that he's getting to see all of this. And I can show you his portrait, but it's not here. That's what I started to tell you, because the frame was gifted to me by the man who first put my art in a museum in Malta. And he said, "Dolly painted this brown, you can make it gold." I said, "I wouldn't touch it." It's this big, heavy, ornate frame. The pieces of it are falling apart. But we had it in Susan's men's show, but I wasn't about to bring it out again. So if you come to my home, you'll see it. So this is a whole long line of paintings that I did of men that started out with the authors and composers and all of it. But when you are working from life, the person is looking back at you. So you're getting who they are more than who they look like.
So you never work with photos?
Oh yeah, I
You
do.
do?
I prefer to work from life, but this was done this was a commission. So they own the original, but this is a giclée. And his fiancée commissioned it. And it was from several photographs that she took. So every time I would see them, I would go up to them like this and talk to them. I said, "He's gonna think I'm crazy." But when he came to the house and he came into our entranceway and was looking at all the art, he was very erudite about all the art. And then he saw his portrait on the easel and he went, "Holy shit." He said, "My son will have this forever." And sadly, he's gone, but his son now.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is it easier for you, or is it the same to work from a photo as a living person?
Well, a photo's easier
Right,
because it doesn't move and
right,
it doesn't talk.
right.
But there's something wonderful about working from life. So but because I've worked from life mainly, working from a photograph, I know how to make it not look like a photograph. For instance, Manet's Follies, where the bartender is at a bar, is from a photograph, and you can tell if you
You're talking about the one where the mirror is behind?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
When
above
you
my
close
bed.
one eye,
My bedroom.
and then you look in another, close
Yeah.
the other eye, it doesn't change.
Right.
So that's how you know, because our eyes are not monocular. They each go back and crisscross in our brain. So
And
that's,
you know there's a mirror there.
yeah.
These are all oils.
These are all oils. I have taught with acrylics, or people are using them, but I prefer oils. I love oil. You love it and you hate it. And this is a giclée, so there's so many different possibilities. And there are small prints, big prints.
What does that mean, giclée?
Giclée is what technology has come up with, where it has so many dots per inch that it looks like an original, only it's a print.
So is it like 3D printing?
No, this is a giclée. You see that?
So you took the original and you did,
I had it photographed professionally.
okay.
See, if you look with a magnifying glass,
Right.
you can see the dots.
Exactly.
I mean, I can see with my eyes.
Right.
Like little pixels.
Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, you can't really tell. And I'm happy to have it.
This fellow that you did here, I know he's obviously Jewish, but I was
Right.
thinking he was a Sephardic Jew as opposed to an Ashkenazi Jew. The way his skin tone is.
Well, I met him and his wife at a concert series
Yeah.
in Ossining. And he came to my house and sat for me. And his name is Zvi Caspi.
You don't
He
know what
owns
country he was
Spectre-
from?
I think Israel.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think he was from Israel.
Okay.
And he owned a photography lab called Spectratone. And they had photographed the Museum of Modern Art's work back then on big prints. And so I always wondered why he didn't buy his portrait. He had a big print in his house. But they did buy another painting that I had done. So I said there's stories for all of it.
Yeah.
How much time do you have?
Are these neighbors or friends?
This is a neighbor. He came to my home to see my art, and he said to Robert, how much would it cost for me to sit for Susan? He said, why don't you ask her? And I said, time. And he was doing his doctorate back then, but he literally sat for the whole portrait. And this is my friend Alec, whose grandmother was Brooke Astor. Remember the story that he had a twin brother and they turned in the father or whatever, the brother did, but he didn't have Brooke Astor's financials. So I painted him as if it were GQ and made him look very formal. What else? And this postman came to my home and wanted to model for me.
You looked at Van Gogh, didn't you?
Huh?
You looked at Van Gogh's postman,
Another
didn't you?
redheaded artist.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
when I taught, my only requirement was that they bought Dear Theo, because when they opened the book, it sounded like something I had said. So for some reason, our astrological charts are almost identical.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I still have both ears, but no, I love it.
He's a lot more frenetic than you.
Right. But, so the postman came over and wanted to pose for me, and I said, would you stand right now? So I did the drawing of him right there, but painting it from memory is what makes it even more Vincent, because without having the person there to see how to get from one place to another, you make your strokes do that for you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Which is why they don't all look like that.
Yeah.
And this man was a friend of mine. I did a painting on his porch, but he was a therapist, not mine, but a therapist. And I wanted to do a painting as if he were giving you therapy. That he looked like someone that would just listen to everything you had to say. And he borrowed it for a while, and he said every time he went to look at it, it was a different painting. So when something is alive, you get that more from life than you do from a work, from a photograph. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And this is my friend Joe that was in a box set called Visions and Voices of Westchester. And back at that time, it showed at Pace Law School. And Richard Ottinger wrote a foreword, and they bought a box set for me and framed it. But Robert Kennedy Jr. taught there and loved this painting and wanted to buy it. So we went to his office with the painting, and he said, oh, well, what's the name of the fisherman? I said, no, this is an actor friend of mine who just came back from Greece. He went, go.
Oh, you were dismissed.
Yeah.
This is the same Robert Kennedy that's.
Yeah,
like-
absolutely.
I thought he was Masters of Law there or something when he went to Pace, because my friends went with him.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, he taught there. He
Did
had
he
an
teach
office
there?
in the
Oh,
back.
okay.
Did they still have my box set hanging in there? I have stories like that. Trump wanted my art for free.
What's everything?
No surprise, he doesn't pay
And
for anything.
Giuliani, when 9/11 happened, I did a painting of the firemen. Do I have that here? A Father Judge. And we framed it, a print of it, and took it down to the mayor's office. And I showed them, because you couldn't get close, and I opened it and showed them what it was, and they told me to keep going through. And they said they would give it to Giuliani. Everybody loved it. I have a picture of it somewhere. And then I never heard a word. So a year later, I decided to find out what happened, and I found out that he instantly stole it and took it to Giuliani's partners. So I have a document, and in the beginning I was very proud of the document. Not anymore. So that's that. So now we get to Susan's Women. This is a friend of mine who posed for 3 paintings actually, but here she posed as Diana, the goddess of the hunt, and the story is about Diana and Actaeon. So at the time I didn't know about Actaeon. So the story is that Actaeon is going to surprise Diana in her birth, in her bath. She's going to splash him, he's going to turn into a deer, and his dogs are going to do him in. So this is the opposite of Keats' ode on a Grecian urn. May he never get there. I put water between them, there's a storm brewing, she's like feeling something. So, and I bought the arrows.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's another long story. This is my friend Peggy. Well, let me get my water on. My throat's getting dry. Sorry.
It's okay. I don't trip over you.
Here it is. Here it is. So where were we? Here, I was living in Ossining back when I did that portrait, and Anna was my neighbor, and she had hung her laundry out behind her, and there was something so interesting about that visual that I asked if I could draw her. And so I brought a canvas out and an easel and did the drawing and then painted it from memory. So you can see how the brush strokes are dancing to make the whole thing work. But when it was all done, I invited them over, and her husband started to cry. He said that's how her eyes looked when she could see, that she had taken off these huge glasses. So, and then the daughter came to visit me just about a year or so ago. So you see, there's stories to everything. And you should see my home is still filled with art. So, and this is Whitney, who lived where I did. She was a former ballet dancer, and her mother commissioned the painting, but couldn't afford the original. So, but she could afford a sheet clay print. So before I even began it, she ordered a sheet clay print, and I promised her she wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two when she saw it. And sure enough, she couldn't tell which was which. They were the same size, and I left part of the painting blank, and also had to augment the print because the sheet clays back then didn't have the DPI that they have today. So everyone was happy, and I got to keep the original. So.
What made you sign your name like that?
Because of the kimono, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And she had just lost a wonderful relationship that she was in, so it felt like Madame Butterfly.
Where do you live now?
Cortland Manor.
Oh, Portland, okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just south of Peekskill. Oh, here, as you're walking by, this was the drawing that landed me my first job, a print of it. See the little girl eating everything she can imagine. It's cute. And this drawing I did when I was in art school and got tired of the same drawings of the model, and a sports club gave me 2 expense paid tickets to Sun Valley. Oh, now this is an ink clay, I think. Is that an ink clay? Yeah, you can see that's just a beautiful print. Now this was a sculptor, and this was a photograph of him melding his piece. You can see his feet here. This was colored pencil. And there's the helmet on his head firing up the piece, which was pure silver, but I imagined with the heat that it turned into color. So it's colored pencil, and his name was Eric David Laxman. Let's see. This was a big abstract that I call Pallas Athena Abstracted. And let's see. I imagine portals. I imagine Raphael's School of Athens, where they're all sitting there, just playful. And then someone gifted me this frame, which just was perfect. And it's not wood, so it's light. I think it's molded plaster. Yeah, you're welcome to look through the books.
You didn't do this knitting stuff there.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Did you have on?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
here,
I'll
here.
tell you how that came. And my grandmother taught me one stitch. I was telling her the story when I was 8. And I made a circle. But because I never did it before, my circle was kind of wobbly. But I figured out what made it get bigger and what made it get smaller. So I made it get small and made a doll with arms and legs and put a dress over it. She hung it up, and that was all I ever needed.
Really?
And then I've made everything up.
And then did you sold, or you had shows?
Yeah, oh yeah, this was
Oh, my
a major business.
So do you do like craft shows with this type
I
of stuff?
used to do Lyndhurst
Yeah.
and Javits, and that's where I met
Mr. Handsome over there, right? Oh, there you go.
my client that she knows.
Oh.
So I have collectors all over the place. Now the first piece, the biggest piece I sold was this Aida. And I don't know if there's a date on there, but she still wears that to the opera and has it in their Florida home.
Oh, wow.
So the thing with crochet is that it looks fragile.
Is
but
it
it's
just
not.
crochet or is it knit and
No,
crochet?
I don't knit.
Oh, it's all crochet.
It's all crochet.
It's amazing.
But each piece is one of a kind.
So what do you enjoy most? Both or just equally?
Well, I used to call crochet sophisticated, edgy, abstract art you can wear, or portable painting. You know, you get such a mess from oil. But with crochet, there's no mess.
Well, it takes the same amount of time,
Oh,
probably.
they're both effort laden,
Yeah,
exhausting. Well, that's why they're one of a kind. I can't duplicate myself. So where are we? Oh, here, this came from a poem that I wrote, and the drawing was originally colored pencil on paper. And it was, if nobody pushed or pulled us, we would be perfect circles instead of stars. And the woman, this man bought a print of it and gave it to this woman who left her corporate job to do what she really wanted to do. And that was kind of exciting. But then I did it on oil, which also was exciting to do. And then this was coronation, C-O-R-O, capital N-A-T-I-O-N. And a notebook series was commissioned by this artist in Peekskill named Carla Ray Johnson. And I put in there, because I stopped painting when Trump got into office. That was it. I couldn't. And I think I told you that he wanted to buy my art. I had done a painting of Hackney School. And so I figured, well, you know, because I represented myself, so I contacted his golf place and said, well, I'd love to do a painting of your golf course. And apparently the final thing was he loved it and wanted it for free. You know, and each building that I painted on that other one, I felt like Muhammad Ali after a fight. It was like exhausting. I have a print of it I can show you. So, so this combined drawings that I did and then made prints of and then collaged them on here. But so when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, or John Lewis, or George Floyd, or I have these plastic skeletons on my porch. I imagine them partying away with the wine bottle, and the people who were bathing on inner tubes, but I made them filled with COVID virus, the nurse running, the tubes, the giant molecules.
So what's the significance of this?
Oh, I drowned him. In COVID. Sorry. In fact, we were laughing. I'm like, maybe that's the bullet. But no, I mean, yeah, I don't wish ill on anyone. But that was the subject matter.
Do you do your own framing?
What's that?
Do you do your own framing?
Do I do my own framing? No. We had a wonderful framer who framed from his garage. He lived in Hartsdale and charged me 10% over cost and had the most amazing selection of frames. And Robert went with him. Did you go down to Florida or New York? I don't know if he'll remember, and looked at the frames. And at the very end of the show, there were these gorgeous, heavy frames that the guy didn't want to carry back. So they bought them for like a great price. So I have some really incredible frames. But no, I had a family in Peekskill frame the photographs. And now you can have your chairs for the big one. And I'm going to